Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Well, good morning, one and all, and happy Thanksgiving. Yes, it is the Thursday of Thanksgiving. This is, of course, O'Connor and Company on WMAL. We are making sense of the news. That's News Talk 105.9 WMAL for all of you who are in the know. And yes, this is one of those days where we truly are going to try to make sense of the news. I'm Andrew Langer in for Larry O'Connor, sitting alongside Hans von Spakovsky. Good morning, Hans.
Good morning, Andrew. You're glutton for punishment. You invited me back.
Yes. In point of fact, we did. Well, there are a lot of reasons, because you are a level-headed thinking gentleman, and we've got to have some level-headed, gentlemanly thinking this morning. Happy Thanksgiving to you, if I didn't say that a moment ago. Lots going on the show today. Obviously, a lot to unpack with what's happening. We're going to be joined by Kurt Schlichter in the 7 a.m. hour, senior columnist for Town Hall, a good friend of Larry's, good friend of mine, former infantry colonel. Jane Hampton Cook, presidential historian and author of the children's book series Revolutionary Readers, is going to join us. Chuck DeVore, from the Texas Public Policy Foundation, retired lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army, is going to join us. Louis Gohmert, former member of Congress, also a former captain in the Army as well. And we're going to be joined. We're going to play. We're going to play this interview that I did a couple of days ago with Dean Butler, who was Almanzo Wilder. You know, you do these things because you want Thanksgiving to be special, Hans, and then you want to use them because this is interesting stuff. They've got a new documentary, and I think we need to feel good. So later on in this hour, we'll be doing that. Oh, and by the way, because we're going to talk about this on the show quite a bit, Curtis Houck from the Media Research Center, he edits Newsbusters. Because, of course, the Democrats immediately turned around, and the mainstream media immediately turned around and attacked President Trump and blamed President Trump for this heinous attack yesterday in D.C. Were you downtown? Were you downtown yesterday, Hans, when the stuff hit the fan?
I was not. I was running around like probably so many other people, trying to take care of Thanksgiving errands, including going shopping with my wife. But with Democrats, it's like they're sitting in their doctor's office. The doctor hits their knee with a hammer, and their immediate reflex is, "Oh, Trump did it."
Right, absolutely. That's exactly right. So yesterday afternoon, in case you have been away from the news and you're getting all of your news as you should from here at WMAL. And you're just tuning in. Yesterday afternoon, 2 West Virginia National Guard members who were deployed to the nation's capital were shot in the afternoon just blocks from the White House. And for those of you familiar with downtown D.C., it looks like they were shot at what was essentially the southwest corner of Farragut Square, 17th and I Street, which is quite literally 2 blocks from the White House gate in front of Pennsylvania Avenue. Right, a lot of folks may not remember that up until essentially September 11th, the road in front of the White House was open. Pennsylvia Avenue, you could drive in front of, you can drive behind the White House on E Street. That's closed off. So 2 blocks up from that gate at Pennsylvania Avenue and 17th Street, this shooting occurred. Jeffrey Carroll, an assistant an executive assistant D.C. police chief, said investigators had no information on the motive. He said the assailant came from around the corner and immediately started firing at the troops, citing video reviewed by investigators. This was a targeted shooting. And let's start here, Hans, with the press conference that was held in Farragut Square a couple of hours after it happened. Here is the D.C. police. Let's play cut number 2, Mike.
Metropolitan Police Department. At approximately 2:15 this afternoon, members of the D.C. National Guard were on high visibility patrols in the area of 17th and I Street Northwest when a suspect came around the corner, raised his arm with a firearm, and discharged it at the National Guard members. The National Guard members, there were other members that were in the area. They were able to, after some back and forth, able to subdue the individual and bring them into custody. Within moments, members of law enforcement in the area were also able to assist and bring that individual into custody. At this time, as the director mentioned, the National Guard members are being treated at a local hospital. DC Fire and EMS responded to the scene to provide first aid for those individuals and transport them to a local hospital. The suspect in this case was also transported for treatment at a local hospital.
Yeah, so that was the first sort of these. Well, this was part of this press conference yesterday. As I heard on the news yesterday, there was a lot before the press conference happened. There was a lot of information flying around, and as someone said, someone who was familiar with situations like this, in these kinds of crisis circumstances, you get 100 reports and 99 of them are inaccurate. Hans, your immediate reaction yesterday?
Oh, look, this was an assassination. This wasn't something random.
Right.
You know, this is an Afghan that he apparently came out when we suddenly abandoned Afghanistan and almost in a panic withdrawal that the Biden administration did. I'm sure they did no vetting of him because that was the general rule all over. So, and by the way, suspect, he was caught red-handed.
Literally.
So there's not much. There's not much question, unfortunately, of who he was. But like I said, we already heard immediately. Oh, this is Trump's fault. The National Guard shouldn't have been there. From liberal talking heads and others like that.
It's interesting because we have spent a lot of time this week talking about random acts of violence, senseless attacks. Whether it's somebody on a bus in Northern Virginia, multiple people being beaten by a career criminal mentally ill assailant on a bus in Northern Virginia, or the woman who was set on fire in Chicago, the woman who was had her throat cut down in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so the immediate reaction, at least for me, is I don't know what this is. I don't know. It's D.C., we know that there is a revolving door still in terms of criminals. The so-called bail reform. Criminals are being let out on the street without having to pay bail. Violent criminals being let out on the street. In the D.C. area, violent criminals, the authorities just throwing up their hands. So, you sit there and you go, oh, my goodness, I don't know what this is. And then it's like your worst fears are realized when you understand that this was an actual terrorist attack. We got the president's reaction. The animal that shot the two National Guardsmen, with both being critically wounded and now in two separate hospitals, is also severely wounded. But regardless, will pay a very steep price. God bless our great National Guard, all of our military and law enforcement. These are truly great people. I, as President of the United States, and everyone associated with the office of the presidency are with you. We're going to hear more about that. Listen, this is going to be the theme that goes through the show today. But first, it is 5:15 a.m., WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Apparently there was a shooting outside the White House just a couple of hours ago. And we're still learning everything. We still don't know the motive. There's a lot that we haven't yet figured out. But what we do know is that a couple of National Guardsmen were injured in the line of duty. And first of all, I want everybody who's a person of faith to say a prayer for those two National Guardsmen, that they're able to spend Thanksgiving with their families instead of losing their lives, because I understand they're still in pretty tough condition. But I think it's a somber reminder that soldiers, whether they're active duty, reserve, or National Guard, our soldiers are the sword and the shield of the United States of America. And as a person who goes into work every single day in that building and knows that there are a lot of people who wear the uniform of the United States Army, let me just say very personally, thank them for what they're doing. We're grateful to them, and we're praying that they're going to be safe and they're going to spend Thanksgiving with their families. God bless them.
Listen, I will say, Hans, I rest a little easier with J.D. Vance as vice president. I do love hearing him talk. And I've rested easier knowing that these National Guardsmen are patrolling the streets. You and I haven't talked about this. We both worked in D.C. for a considerable amount of time. and it's had its ebbs and flows in terms of safety. But I'm someone who has been setting aside the fact that it's the District of Columbia. It is a federal district. The federal government has huge leeway in terms of its power. I have rested easy knowing that National Guard troops are patrolling the streets. Your thoughts here?
Well, no, I agree. I've been working in downtown D.C. now for more than 2 decades.
Wow.
And the crime situation has just gotten worse and worse. I personally know people who have been mugged. I know someone who was almost carjacked. And all of this is because, Congress gave home rule to D.C., and the D.C. Council and mayors have been horrible. Their whole attitude has been, let the criminals out, let them roam the streets, don't keep them in jail. And they're the reasons why the crime has gotten so badly there. I want to personally thank the National Guardsmen who have been patrolling the streets, folks from different parts of the country, from D.C., who they have regular jobs. They've been called up, and they are sacrificing their time and effort there. And by the way, the other reason we've been seeing this kind of thing is because during the Biden administration, they let in deliberately over 8 million. 8 million illegal aliens, no vetting whatsoever, and many of these crimes that we've been seeing have been committed by whom? Criminal illegal aliens.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. So the suspect has been identified as an Afghan national, Ramanullah Lakanwal. I don't know. Ramanullah Lakanwal came to U.S. in 2021 withdrawal. ID'd as alleged terrorist gunman shooting of 2 National Guard members, entered the country under Operation Allies Welcome, settled in Bellingham, Washington. And Ramallah Lakanwal was allegedly lying in wait before he rounded the corner near the Farragut West Metro Station in northwest D.C. around 2:15 p.m., then opened fire, striking a female National Guards person in the chest before shooting her in the head. Good Lord. Then allegedly fired and struck the second guard until a third guard stationed nearby rushed to the area and took him down. It is emblematic of something that I've talked about on this show, I've talked about on other shows before. When you make policy in a crisis, and this is what happened, the Afghanistan withdrawal and the crisis that was precipitated as a result of it was a direct result of the mismanagement of that withdrawal by the Biden administration. They were feckless. They were incompetent. And they gave rise to, all of this. There was obviously, folks who had done good service by supporting our troops in Afghanistan. Obviously, those people should have been let in. But a lot of folks were perhaps not vetted as well as they could have been. I'm trying to be as diplomatic as possible.
But you shouldn't be diplomatic because look, military advisors at the time warned the White House of what would happen if they did a sudden panicked withdrawal.
Right.
And
I believe me.
They did it anyway, including leaving behind all this military equipment, which they basically handed over to the terrorists who took over Afghanistan.
Right. So but what I'm saying is that you precipitate this crisis, and even the most erstwhile bureaucrats who may be trying to do a job in terms of vetting can't. Something is going to be missed. Is my point in all of this. And the worse you make the crisis that you have precipitated as the Biden administration, the greater the possibility that something bad is going to happen. And so that's, we're going to learn more about this. And obviously, Pete Hegseth has now pledged that we're going to have more troops coming in. Here's what he had to say. Let's jump down, Michael, and play cut number 7.
We will never back down. We will secure our capital. We will secure our cities. In fact, this happened just steps away from the White House. It will not stand. And that's why President Trump has asked me, and I will ask the Secretary of the Army, to the National Guard to add 500 additional troops, National Guardsmen, to Washington, D.C. This will only stiffen our resolve to ensure that we make Washington, D.C. safe and beautiful. The drop in crime has been historic. The increase in safety and security has been historic. But if criminals want to conduct things like this, violence against America's best, we will never back down. President Trump will never back down. That's why the American people elected him.
All right, and so we're gonna continue to have this conversation. We're gonna hear what President Trump had to say last night, what Kash Patel had to say, and by the way, we're gonna talk about all kinds of other stuff because it is Thanksgiving. In the meantime, well, listen, we got more to come here on O'Connor & Company, WMAL. Well, we're going to continue to break down this story, but in the first instance, we're going to have Dean Butler. Almanzo Wilder from Little House on the Prairie is going to make us feel good. It's 5:30 on O'Connor & Company, WMAL. Hey there, everybody. It is 5:37 on this gorgeous Thanksgiving morning on News Talk 105.9 WMAL. We are making sense of the news. I'm Andrew Langer in for Larry O'Connor, sitting alongside Hans von Spakovsky. Happy Thanksgiving, Hans.
And same to you and your family and the families of all our listeners.
Absolutely. Yes. I appreciate that. Listen, we got a great show today. So much going on in the world. We got Curtis Houck in the next hour, Kurt Schlichter and Jane Hampton-Cook in the 7 a.m. hour, Chuck DeVore and Louis Gomert in the 8 a.m. hour. But first, because we need a little bit of sunshine on this Thanksgiving Day, given the news yesterday, I sat down 2 days ago with Dean Butler, who played Almanzo Wilder on Little House on the Prairie. Let's go ahead and play that, Michael. So pleased to bring on our guest. Thrilled that he's joining us for this special Thanksgiving broadcast today. His name is Dean Butler. He is a documentary filmmaker and actor. You might know him from his stint as Almanzo Wilder on Little House on the Prairie, and he is carrying on the Little House legacy. And Dean, it's a big week for you this week because you've got this documentary coming out. Tell us all about it.
So, Andrew, first off, thank you for having me on your program. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your listeners. Sir. And, I came into Little House Homecoming, and this is the documentary we're talking about, as a result of meeting a filmmaker named Jonathan Parker, who told me about his desire to make a film to honor his daughter, Anna, then about 11 years old.
Yeah.
And her love and passion for all things Little House on the Prairie, whether that be the series, the books, and he wanted to get it from a consumer of the materials point of view. Right. So now he realized he wanted to also talk to people who were directly involved, and he did that. But I think his main thrust was to celebrate the love that not only his daughter, but people of all ages have for this material. And so I stepped in with him on that, and I got Allison Arngrim, who of course is beloved and hated by audiences all over the world for her portrayal as Nellie Olson on the Little House series. And we stepped into this with the intent of bringing Cass to it, connecting him to the historic sites,
right?
Going to places where people who would have opinions about all of this were gathering.
Right.
And Jonathan followed the Little House cast through the summer of 2024 when we were celebrating the series' 50th anniversary.
Amazing.
Year. And he shot beautiful, beautiful footage of these places and collected what I described as love letter interviews to Laura.
Yeah.
About Laura. There is nothing controversial in this film.
Sure.
It is not, there is no new ground being broken here. There's no new theory being advanced. It is purely, totally about love and appreciation for the messages that Laura Ingalls Wilder presented beginning in the 1930s in her books, and that were extended by Michael Landon beginning in 1974 for 9 full seasons on NBC in the Little House television series. I thought it was a beautiful mission. And when it was made even better, Andrew, when I met Jonathan's daughter, Anna, his sons, Joel and Ben, his wife, Becky, and you could just see this beautiful connection to this material.
Right.
That they loved it. And they wanted to celebrate it, and it was awesome.
Interesting because, we all know about Star Trek fandom and the Trekkers,
yes.
or Trekkies, depending on how you.
I'm one of those.
Yeah, of course. But you move on and you think, well, yeah, Little House on the Prairie, and obviously there's something about 70s and early 80s nostalgia there. But there are folks who like to dress up. There are folks who, and we're going to talk about this event that's happening in Southern California. But the fandom of this and the clamoring for it, and it's what I appreciate about this documentary as someone who lives in Williamsburg, Virginia, there is that.
How great for you.
Right. There is the, right. You have folks who like to dress up and do the Colonial Williamsburg thing, but this is a combination of the fandom. It's a combination. I'm going to say cosplay, and I don't mean that in a negative way at all, but there is that connection and walking those streets of Walnut Grove or Sleepy Eye or wherever. Yes, clearly I spent a lot of time watching the show when I was younger, and still on occasion today. But there is something about that connection, isn't there? In the same way that folks get drawn to a Star Trek convention or sci-fi convention or a Comic-Con or to a place like Colonial Williamsburg. Talk about that.
I think that the Little House phenomenon is really, I think it's based in two things. One, I think it's about giving reverence to a time that is perceived to be simpler.
Right.
Where choices are much clearer, simpler. There's far less nuance in the world.
Right.
You really have to step into your life and be in that life. And the way Laura writes it, it's a pure life of purpose.
Sure.
Where you are moving from one task to the next, essentially to survive. So what you do today allows you to survive tomorrow, next week, next month, next year.
Right.
And then I think beyond that, there are the values that are reflected in all of that. And certainly in Laura's books, I think amplified more emotionally in the television series because Michael lived in a world of emotion.
Right.
Laura lived in a world of what we did to survive, how we did this. Michael lived in a world of how we felt about what we were doing.
Sure.
To live in this time and place. So together, the books and the series create this wonderful connection of moral, purposeful authenticity.
Right.
That is positive, hopeful, and in this case of the series, it is there are pure lessons, there are foundational lessons of goodness and not goodness.
Sure.
Goodness embodied in the Ingalls family.
Of course, yeah.
And not such goodness, not such pure purpose embodied in the Olsen family, particularly Mrs. Olsen and Nellie.
Mrs. Olsen and Nellie, yes, of course, because Mr.
Nels was the long-suffering.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Nels made them redeemable.
Of course, yes.
If he had been as awful as they were, they wouldn't have survived in that town. But Nels made them survivable. So there are lessons of redemption. There are lessons of positive purpose, and there were always consequences for bad behavior, and the simple clarity of that. Life is not that simple. We know life's not that simple, but what Little House offers is a chance to consider who you want to be in the world. And I think those lessons endure. They've endured for 50 plus years. And, Andrew, I think those lessons will endure indefinitely because they are human.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
And now more of my discussion with Dean Butler. When you stepped on the set of Little House for the first time, I mean, obviously did you have an understanding of the longevity of the books and sort of how far it went, or did you just think this is a gig and I'm going to do this? And
I had zero understanding of what it was. I have come to understand it extremely well. I had no sense of the longevity. Now, said many times, and I think this Michael Landon was prescient about these things. He did understand something that was fundamental about being human. He said to me on at least one occasion that I remember, probably my second year on the show, and we were in between shots and we were talking about something, and I think we were probably talking about ratings that had occurred on a previous the night before, and he always looked at the ratings on Tuesday morning, and the ratings were generally good.
Sure.
And he said to me, people will be watching this show long after we're all gone.
Right.
There are a lot of shows that are perhaps have a little more heat in the zeitgeist of American culture right now, but those shows will all be forgotten.
Right.
And people will still be watching Little House on the Prairie. And he was so certain about this. Now, Michael was a man who did not waffle. There was no, I never saw a moment's doubt or hesitation in his eyes.
Sure.
He was crystal clear about what he believed. I thought it was a little hyperbole at the time. At 25 years old, you know, you think, well, there's never a time we're not going to be here.
Right.
At 25, you're eternal.
Right.
Now at nearly 70, I'm thinking, wow, how wise was he and smart was he? Because he's really predicted all of this.
Right. And it never, I mean, I don't think it ever really jumped the shark. I mean, it was challenging, right? In the way you have a series with that level of longevity. I mean, The Simpsons, right? The Simpsons, at least they can continue to draw the characters as young, but when Allison got too old to be who she was, when, you know, your character and Melissa Gilbert's character got married, and all of these started to have kids. So you need the younger, and some of the younger folks are involved in this effort, which is interesting. Mm-hmm. Karen Grassel, as I understand, she's involved as well.
Karen, yes, no. Yeah. Karen, if we're talking about Little House Homecoming, Karen is a producer of Little House Homecoming. It's actually, so it's Karen, Allison, me, and Charlotte Stewart, who played Miss Beadle.
Yes, of course.
Now, so, and America's most beloved school teacher.
Absolutely.
So the four of us stepped in with Jonathan. Now, to a different degree, interestingly, Wendy Lou Lee, who was Baby Grace, during the, you know, when she was introduced, I think in season 4, who was just a toddler when she was introduced. Well, now Wendy is in her late 40s, a beautiful woman, a woman of purpose, who can speak to the spirituality of Little House in a beautiful, beautiful way. And she does. And she's written 3 books that connect to the Little House stories. And
amazing.
She's a wonderful, wonderful spokesman for what the show's about.
I know your time is limited. Let me ask you this. You've got this big event also happening in Southern California. I mean, you know, we're a DC show, but we have, you know, folks travel. They like to travel for things like this. What's going on in Southern California?
So on December 12th, 13th, and 14th, we are staging our first holiday themed gathering for Little House. So amazing. So it's really going to be about Little House Christmases. And I think that people loved those stories. Sure. They're beautiful stories. They're very atmospheric. I mean, look, we created all the snow in Walnut Grove during the heat of the summer to make it look like snow. There will be no snow in Simi Valley, but there will be lots of winter spirit, lots of holiday spirit. We'll have 16 former cast members present for that. We'll be screening Little House Homecoming. We'll be screening Little House holiday episodes. There are special panels that will be recorded, conversations related to careers and the holidays and so on with certain cast members. There will be wonderful vendors there, delicious food. I think it's a really, visits from Santa Claus, tree trimming, all of that. If people want to check it out, they can go to Little House on the Prairie castreunions.com, and all the information is there. Tickets are still available. Coming from your area, that would be quite a trip to plan at this point, but not impossible. People can do it.
Yeah. You never know. You never know what happens. Let me tell you, I remember a very specific story in the original Little House on the Prairie book about Pa running into St. Nicholas out on the prairie.
Yes.
And it's obviously a very different, a 19th century description of St. Nicholas being razor thin, as I recall, something like that. How do folks find the documentary? And how do they watch it?
So you can go to littlehousehomecoming.com. That is that address. And you'll be able to buy tickets for what is going to debut on November 26th, this Thanksgiving weekend, as a virtual cinema event.
Fun.
So you can put your whole family down in front of, you can stream it to your television set.
Oh, yeah.
Watch it as a family at home. Andrew, it's a beautiful film, a love letter to Laura, and really a nice way to kick off the holiday season to watch this. Yeah.
Well, Dean, listen, thank you so very much for taking time to do this. Anytime you want to come back, anything you got to promote, just let me know, and we'd love to have you back.
You're very kind, Andrew. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Democrats have an unhinged reaction to the shooting in Washington, D.C. We hear from them. We hear what the president had to say last night. It's 6 a.m. on O'Connor & Company, WMAL.